Hi, Year 7. This term in geography, you've been learning about different landscapes and landforms, and the last part of the unit requires you to look at some natural disasters or natural hazards. And so you'll be working on a research activity that will take you approximately 3 lessons to work on. Okay, so you may view this video as much as you like to help you with your research task. So it says here, part 1 of your research. You must choose one natural hazard from the list below. Okay, so out of bushfires, droughts, floods, storms, and tropical cyclones, just choose one. I would choose the one that you already know a little bit about. Okay, so for example, I might choose bushfires because there were some terrible bushfires in Australia at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and this is something that I already know a little bit about. Now, with bushfires, I will then need to research A, B, C, and D. Okay, and when I'm doing my research for A, B, C, or D, I'm going to be recording my research on this fact sheet. Okay, so let's have a look through it. So question number A says define the natural hazard and annotate a map of Australia, identifying the areas of the country that are prone to the natural hazard. Why are these areas affected? So a couple of things. The word prone means that the hazard often or is likely to occur in that particular area. So what I'll then do is I'll go to my fact sheet down here. I'll define the natural hazard. So if I'm doing bushfires, I'll look up a definition of what a bushfire is and I'll put it into my own words. For number 2, I will then shade on my map of Australia or maybe highlight where bushfires generally occur. So when we think about it, they're not going to really occur in the middle of Australia because we know the middle of Australia is all desert. Okay, so you might think about areas in Australia that often experience bushfires. In New South Wales, we know it's areas that have a lot of trees, and so areas like the Blue Mountains. So you might sort of shade or pinpoint this on your map of Australia. Okay. Now, next to your map, you have to write down why does it affect these areas. So you may talk about why it affects these particular areas. So you will then say something along the lines of maybe it affects these areas because of the weather or the climate. It affects these areas because these areas have lots of bushland. Okay, and that's what fires need to keep on going. If we go back up to your research task B, it says the geographical processes involved. It says devise a detailed flowchart to explain the geographic processes involved in the occurrence of your natural hazard. So I'm going to show you, so you'll do part B in this box over here. Okay. I'm going to show you an example of a flowchart. So this is what a flowchart looks like. So this flowchart is for tropical cyclones, and it talks about what sort of things will lead to a tropical cyclone occurring. So it has tropical disturbance, wind, energy, water, there might be lightning and clouds, and how that all leads to a tropical cyclone. So that's what a flow chart looks like. Okay, you can use words in your flow chart as well. So that's what you need to do in this particular box for part B. For part C, it says collect 2 to 3 news stories that cover a recent event on your natural hazard in Australia. Use this information to describe the economic, the environmental and social impacts of the natural hazard. So you'll record part C in this table over here. So if you are doing bushfires, for example, you might find a newspaper article from the bushfires that have just happened. You'll write the title of the newspaper article. You'll then write the date and the newspaper publication. So it might be from the Sydney Morning Herald, the Daily Telegraph, the Australian, the Age, okay? And then you're going to be telling me a little bit about what is this newspaper article telling you about this natural hazard. So what we want you to think about is the impact, though, of the natural hazard. Has it had an economic impact? So has it affected businesses in an area? Has it had a social impact? How has it affected people? Or has it had an environmental impact? How has it affected the environment? So you might find a newspaper on how lots of wildlife, millions of wildlife and koalas and kangaroos have been killed by the recent bushfires. And that's an impact, and that would be an environmental impact. So you'd write about that in this box, okay? Then you'll find another newspaper title. You'll write down the date and newspaper publication, and then you'll tell me about another impact, okay? Try and have your impacts as different impacts. So if this is an environmental impact, maybe for this box over here, you could look at an economic impact. So I'll give you another example. You might find a newspaper article about hotels in the Blue Mountains. And with the bushfires they've experienced recently, lots of people haven't been traveling to the Blue Mountains and staying in the hotels, and so they've lost a lot of business. Okay, so anything that has to do with business or money, we say is an economic impact. Okay. Let's scroll back up to your task. And last but not least, we've got D, which is the responses by various groups. Okay, so you have to think about how do people respond to this natural disaster. So if you go down to question number 5, this is where you record the responses by various groups. So it says fill in the following table showing how different groups. So it could be an individual, it could be a group like Salvation Army, or it could be the government. Okay, how did they respond to this hazard? So you might sort of say something along the lines of Salvation Army. Okay, what did they do to help people that perhaps their homes had burnt down? Okay, or it might be the government. What has the government done to help the people impacted by the bushfires? Have they given them some money to help them start their business again or to help them rebuild their homes? So you're thinking about what have we done to help the people affected or the business affected by that natural disaster. Okay, and that's all you have to do, Year 7. So I guess in essence, you're going to be choosing one hazard from this list. Choose the one that you feel like you know the best. Okay. You're going to be answering these questions, but you're going to be writing your answers or your research on this fact sheet. Okay. So best of luck with this task, and please email your teachers if you have any questions. Thank you.